In exactly 2 months, 18 eminently qualified individuals are expected to be on the ballot as Nigerians embark on the process of electing their next president. Before that time, however, there could be further configuration and reconfiguration of the political landscape with the possibility of alliances and coalitions. And this will come as little surprise given Nigeria's heavily monetized political process. Presidential candidates of the major parties are at the moment burning the campaign trail, trying to convince Nigerians to buy into their plans. But in reality, how many among these candidates are speaking directly to the socio-economic challenges confronting the nation at this point in time? Joining us now from our Rise Studios in Abuja to have a conversation on all that is Osita Okechukwu, who is Director General of Voice of Nigeria and member of the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress. We will also expect him to do an assessment of President Muhammadu Buhari's scorecard on infrastructure against the backdrop of the recent completion and opening of a second bridge over the River Niger between Delta and Anambra states, as well as recurring question of the Igbo presidency in the Nigerian Federation. Good morning, Mr. Okechukwu. Good to have you join us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And Merry Christmas in advance.
Merry Christmas to you too. Compliments of the season. All right, well, Christmas is already here. Thank you. But of course, people are wondering that, yes, on the one hand, President Buhari has scored a major point with the second Niger bridge and the temporary opening just to allow people to have easier access, to the eastern part of the country, which people are commending. But on the other side, it's also the problem that again, we have returned to the dirty December kind of a thing that people are now struggling to get fuel. People are now struggling for cash in their pocket, and that tends to reduce the sort of legacy that people like your good selves will want to associate with the president. How will you, what's your assessment of what Nigerians are going through now at this time that Christmas and New Year celebrations are there? Is it a question of celebrating the legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari with what he has done with the second Niger bridge, or people who can't even move from point A to the other? What would be your assessment at this point, sir?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that President Muhammadu Buhari, in his own way, had done his best to tackle the infrastructural deficit he met on the ground about 7 years ago. What we are witnessing is an issue that was foretold 36 years ago. In 1986, when the Structural Adjustment Program was adopted, our scholars, some of them living, some are no more alive, Bala Usman, Professor Onimade, Professor Ikenna Zimiro, those who are alive, Noli, and others, they warned that if you adopt the Structural Adjustment Program as economic policy, that it is not suitable for our kind of economy. Because up to date, we've discovered that there is no private sector to absorb what the Structural Adjustment Program envisaged. Up to today, we could not go to Mambila because in an effort to privatize, those who managed it about 10 or 12 years ago considered it to an incompetent investor. Same thing with Ajokuta. All those that Buhari tried to recover, what he could recover, he recovered. In terms of the rail line, he expanded the rail line and went to standard gauge rail line. And then the second Niger bridge, some didn't believe him, but today it has come to fruition. So the issue about where we are is about 3 decades plus. A plunge Nigeria did into an economic program that never succeeded in any third world country of the world. Rather, He had plunged the third world country that adopted it into more poverty, gross unemployment, and the depredation. And what it led to was crisis. So I could understand, if not that President Muhammad Buhari embarked on agrarian revolution, trying to resuscitate all the dams abandoned. In the good days, where there are windfalls to rehabilitate some of them, we could have been in a worst case scenario. So let nobody talk about the last 7 years. It is not about 7 years ago, it is about 36 years ago that we said that the government had no business in business. And then who had that business? They told us about the private sector. Yes, we have private sector, but our private sector is very scant, very minute. Those who who could muzzle funds and engage. We privatized our electricity chain, what they call the discos. About 11 of them, 9 failed, if not all of them. Why did it fail? Because our private sector is lean. The Nigerian government continued to pump in money in a privatized area. So when you keep on pumping money, it's like a drain pipe. There will be little or no money left to attend to social services the way you should, like education, health, and other social services. So the issue is about the program we have adopted, and it's also painful that going through the manifesto of the major political parties, most of them are still leaning on the same government had no business in business. One, when you say government had no business in business, it means you have lost confidence in yourself, that you cannot drive people to execute projects to the fruition of the larger or greatest number of the Nigerian people. So it is not a today's matter. We could still recover, but we have to change our direction. If we don't change our direction to believe in ourselves, to believe that we can invest and manage our investment, then we'll find ourselves where we are.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu, let me piggyback on something you said. You said this is not about what has happened in the last 7 years as against what has happened over the last 3 decades. But some will question and say that when the APC were campaigning leading up to 2015, they didn't mention the fact that it was about the last 30 years, but it was about what the PDP had done in the last 16 years. And you put that into context, because a lot of people, the PDP has questioned that the same things that the PDP were trying to do in terms of restructuring, especially in the downstream sector with all the subsidy, has now become a major issue right now. And the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, he has actually spoken to that fact, talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has said that he, regardless of protest, he will remove fuel subsidy. And people are saying that, what has changed between when he went to the streets along with several Nigerians to stop fuel subsidy and say that fuel subsidy was a scam and the rest of them, that politicians are not being truthful. They're just saying what they have to say to get to power, as against actually hitting on the issues that borders on Nigerians.
The only correction one had to make is that if you don't get into the details of the files, there will tend to be some assumptions. If you know how dear the Mambila power plant is to President Buhari, is as close dear to him as that of the second Niger bridge. And he plunged in to know whether he could get going with the Mambila. Because the Mambila is supposed to produce about 4,000 megawatts of electricity, equivalent to what we have today. Irrigate swaths of land that will produce and boost agriculture. In it, if you have been in Mambila, you see where it is located, that it's a very great, rich soil, rich environment, and even a temperate climate. But what happened? Within the privatization program of the PDP, there was a mix-up. And today, To entangle that mix-up had become a problem. Because when you are confronted to pay up almost about $1 billion to get the so-called private sector that put hands on by perfecting an agreement that was not even well looked into, it's still a questionable agreement. The same thing happened in Ajokuta. Because of the fact that we are in a globalized world, you cannot discard of any contract entered by the previous regime. It's just that PDP modeled the privatization program. Because in the privatization program, World Bank said it must be transparent. It must be transparent to satisfy the people. Because what you are trying to privatize is state-owned enterprise. You want to privatize the distribution companies. You gave it to your cronies, who claim that they have technical partners. And the technical partners were not coming with any fund. That's where we had the problem. It's not about the fact that we did not intend to remobilize and re-energize the economy of the country. We did. We did. If we did not, we won't have what we have on the ground today. We won't have the barricade we have created by the agricultural revolution. But where do we start? Over 40-something irrigation dams were abandoned in the PDP days. We had to start afresh to revamp most of them. But the key one, the Mambila, we could not go far because of the tango. As I said before, you entered into a situation where the agreement you met on the ground is an agreement that the landlord signed, but it was written by the tenant. And the PDP in his days behaved like the tenant and signed up the Nigerian Commonwealth, thinking that there would be a better day. That better day did not come. Because in the globalized world, you don't just discard any international agreement. You must honor it. And when we went to arbitration, it's a long haul. I hope one day you invite Abubakar Malami, the SAN, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, to explain the rigors of getting some of these agreements entangled that the PDP entered the Nigerian state into. That's what we're saying. When you come to power, when you open the files, you see the gray areas. The gray areas are not made open until you get to power yourself. That's exactly where we find ourselves. The Ajokuta steel mill, one of the high points when we are coming to government, that will revamp, that we know how much it's costing the Nigerian state to import the steel from abroad, while we have a large swath of iron deposits. We could not go far.
Well, I mean, my area really is to insist on knowing what your assessment of the legacy of President Muhammadu Buhari is. I get the point of trying to look at the areas, you know, the infrastructural renewal that the government has apparently focused on. But then, should that have been, you know, concentrated on without looking at how it affects people, individuals, Nigerians directly? In this December of 2022, people are now buying fuel per liter at 250, 270, and we have not removed what, you know, the candidate of your party is saying that, you know, will be removed yet. Rice, a bag of rice today in Nigeria is between 40 and 70,000 naira. Mr. Okechukwu, I don't know if you have bought Christmas rice, but those are the issues that Nigerians are dealing with. So when they hear of the infrastructural renewal, when they hear of Mambila power project, of railways, of Second Niger Bridge, yes, they applaud it, but at the same time, they are dealing with issues of Naira and Kobo, which is a major, you know, a component of what they would speak about at this time. Nigerians are now back into Christmas fuel queues. How do you assess that against the infrastructural renewal that the President Muhammadu Buhari has concentrated on?
No, I agree with some of your high points.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that it could have been worse. Don't forget that we passed through the COVID era, and we also passed through an era when, if President Muhammad Buhari did not embark on an agrarian revolution, it could have been worse. Don't forget that by the COVID era, both the Thailand and all those large producing rice countries, they were not exporting any rice, not even a ton. I say it could have been worse. That's what I'm still saying. And I'm saying that if he did not invest in what is called the Anchor Brewers program, whereby he targeted the peasant farmers, where they are in the rural areas, it could have been worse.
Well, Mr. Okechukwu, when you say it could have been worse, for people that bought rice in the Jonathan era for less than 9,000,
yes,
and people that are buying rice for well over 35, 40,000, when you say it could have been worse, how do you explain it to them that it could have been worse when they've seen an upsurge in the price of rice? When people that initially were happy that they didn't have to queue every December coming into the Christmas, all of a sudden are seeing queues happen again in the final December of the Buhari administration. When you say it could have been worse, explain it to us, because there is reality on ground, like Steve was saying, and what the administration seemed to be pushing out as gains in time past. Dimension it for us if you can.
Please, if you take time to go through the manifesto of the 4 major political parties and candidates, you will still discern that they will not do anything outside the line Mr. President has followed to assuage our economic conditions, to renew our infrastructure, to bring back people back to land and produce what we eat. There is no other method except to invest heavily on the peasant farmers, invest heavily on the medium large-scale farmers. If you don't do so, I don't know what else you're going to do. And this is what Mr. President has continued to do. Don't forget as well that without insecurity that's deteriorated, we could have been where we are. And luckily, the international community is supporting Mr. President to knock down the insurgents. And there's nobody who is going to go to any market without purchasing the Super Tucano jets or similar equivalent, or the helicopters and other small arms and medium arms. If anybody has a different solution, I don't know where we can find that. All we need is to elect a government that will continue and try as much as possible to be prudent in managing our resources. Otherwise, there's no other way out, except you must invest on the people. You must invest in the land. Don't totally rely on the private sector. Because if you do so, some of the captives of industry we have no factory. Some of them do not even have water factory. All they are pursuing is the petrodollars. That is what we were told before. Please continue to invest in the Nigerian people, invest in the education, invest in their people, invest in the land. That the resources we have should be more concentrated in investing on our people than depending on the so-called private sector that will come from nowhere. Yes, they'll be handy with companies' names. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty of investing the funds, we didn't see any of them in the electricity that was privatized. We didn't see any of those investors in the Ajokuta that was privatized. We didn't see that in Mandela. We didn't see that in other sectors. I could hear a candidate of the PDP, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, saying he will sell this and raise $10 billion and invest. The one he privatized, even the houses they sold, they could not account for the funds. So we had to be careful and try to get back to the nitty-gritties. How did we succeed in the past? We succeeded in the past by depending on ourselves and then begging for some hands-on to assist us on the ground, not depending on the private sector entirely.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu. From what I can, my appreciation of what you're saying basically is that you will want a situation whereby whoever will take over from the President Muhammadu Buhari, will continue on, the same trajectory. My question to you is, you've listened to all the presidential candidates, including the candidate of your own party. How convinced are you that those presidential candidates, particularly your own presidential candidate in APC, will follow on the footpath of President Muhammadu Buhari? If you take, for example, two key issues, the issue of subsidy removal, President Muhammadu Buhari did not remove subsidy in 8 years, even though in the last 2 years he has been an advocate of subsidy removal. Yet he says that it won't happen until June next year. And of course, the issue of parallel markets, for FX. Your presidential candidate says that he will ensure that we do not have different rates, which President Muhammadu Buhari, again in 7.5 going to 8 years, did not do. How will you assess the continuity, the sort of continuity that you want based on what your candidate and other presidential candidates are saying so far?
What you cannot deny Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is that he's a talent hunter. Nobody can deny his capacity on trying to expand his base to look for those he thinks will add the niche he's looking for. I cannot deny that. But I'm saying fundamentally, he will not depart essentially from what President Muhammadu Buhari had started doing. Because what he had done is like laying the foundation. Don't forget that President Muhammadu Buhari also invested in the Dangote refinery. He invested 20%. So, which means he's not running away from the private sector entirely, but he's also saying that let us do it, depend on ourselves first and foremost.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu, probably let me still pick up because it's a topical issue. Let's still pick up on something Steve mentioned that probably just maybe he didn't catch, which is the fact that the political parties and what they're campaigning on right now, are they hitting the salient points that bothers Nigerians or that probably keep Nigerians up at night and keeps them uneasy wherever they sit? Security has been a huge issue. You've also alluded to the fact that security has been a very big issue that President Muhammadu Buhari has been finding it difficult to wrap his arms around. Now, people cannot go to their farms freely. And these are issues that are bothering people. Some are claiming that the reason why there are too many people in Lagos come the end of December 2022 is that a lot of people are afraid to travel by road because they could be kidnapped, or worst case scenario, they might go and not return. And some are saying that political parties are not addressing these issues. Do you think they are addressing the issues that bother Nigerians? Or are they more concerned about internal democracy? Are they more concerned about the jamboree of just campaigning all around the place and not hitting on the major issues that ails Nigerians?
What I'm saying essentially is that what President Muhammadu Buhari did, first and foremost, to improve the welfare and the morale of the Nigerian armed forces. Secondly, was also to re-establish diplomatic angle. What did diplomacy do? The diplomacy now opened some areas where we could import sophisticated weapons, which I cannot name all of them here. But when you open that diplomatic axis, you had to wait for some of these equipment are not procured off shelf. That's exactly what happened. If you notice, you could see that there's improvement on the attack on insurgents. It's not been the way it was before, but it's not a day's job as well. But what President Muhammadu Buhari had done is that he had opened the international frontiers that will now have sophisticated weapons. And secondly, the morale of the troops on the ground had improved tremendously. And that has also improved on the security conditions. Yes, it's not been solved. And anybody that comes tomorrow, in two months' time, there'll be an election. In the next months, somebody will be sworn in. The person must continue where President Muhammadu Buhari stopped. You cannot go to the moon to procure those arms. You must go through those same channels. You cannot do anything better than to improve the morale. If you check the promotion that is going on in the armed forces, he keeps on promoting the morale. Because if you don't have the morale of the troops, he had invested more in the Nigerian police force, more than PDP did in 16 years. He had invested more in the Nigerian army, more than the PDP did in 16 years. The records are there. So if you say you are going to do anything different, we pray that that remains within the realm of pragmatism, not on conjunctures or supernatural. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu, just two questions from me. First is to know what your assessment of the deal that the Southeast and the Igbo nation, if you like, the deal that they got under President Muhammadu Buhari, the assessment of people generally based on pollings and stuff is that majority of voters in the Southeast will vote for the opposition, in spite of the fact that the second Niger bridge is there, courtesy of, President Muhammadu Buhari finishing it. Will this say to you that the Igbo nation or the Southeast, geopolitical zone is still not satisfied with what President Muhammadu Buhari has done for that region, up till now? That's one. Secondly, is that I would like your comment on what seems to be brewing between the DSS and the CBN governor and all the allegations that we are hearing. I'm sure that you have been following on that news. You are a newsman yourself. What is your assessment? And is there anybody in charge who can make sure that this seemingly little issue does not degenerate into something that will rub badly on the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari?
Let me start from the first one, okay, because you talked about a place where I come from, the Igbo nation.
Yes.
There are two schools of thought in the Igbo nation. One is the Ziki school of thought. One is the Okechukwu school of thought. I belong to the Zikist school of thought in Igbo land. The Ziki school of thought in Igbo land believes that if it is good in Damaturu, it's good in Duse, it's good in Oron, it's good in Shaki, in Oyo State, it's good in Enugu, that's the better for the Igbo man, because we are in everywhere. In whichever part of the country that is improved is in the interest of the Igbo nation that belongs to my own school of thought. And so, for us, we have high regards for President Muhammadu Buhari because he looked into the substance of issues, not the symbolic. Yes, the PDP appointed the Igbo man Chief of Army Staff, Minister of Finance, Minister of Power, the Senate President, this and that and that. That is symbolic. Buhari did not go that way. He went for those concretes that an industrious group like the Igbos will benefit more from. It's not only the second Niger bridge. Ask yourself, those network of roads that surround the region and other parts of the country. We were in a sports club in Enugu one evening, a Saturday evening, and they were Buhari did this, Buhari did that. I reminded them that it's easier today to travel from Onitsha to Enugu, Enugu to Port Harcourt, Umuahia to Iketekpene, and others. And then there are dams. They say, what dam are you talking about? I reminded them that there's what they call the Adada River Dam, where we had the Adada rice. And they said, where is it? I said, Mr. President, is almost on completion. The few that volunteered the next Sunday after service, we went there, about 70 kilometers from Enugu. They did not believe themselves. So the point of the matter is that Buhari attended to the substance. The symbolic, yes, I agree with them. But what we're saying is that in appointment, it's okay. The perception of appointment is great. But what of the substance of the infrastructure upon which the common people lean on, upon which the Nigerian state grows on? So please, it's like the Peter Obi candidature. I told them he's not an Igbo candidate, and Peter said so himself. What we're saying is that if it's good for the country, it's good for us. The Peter candidature is structured as a pan-Nigerian candidature. Those who have embraced him, like Padabanjo, if you listen to his statement, he said if he deny Igbos to go away, why should he deny them their own turn? I was reading a newspaper this morning by General Williams. You go up north, you meet those who are quietly saying, if this is the candidate, is the Nigerian candidate, not an Igbo candidate. Because when it's good to them in Damatru, it's good for the Igbos. We are there. It's good in Shaki, in Oyo State. It's good for us. It's good in Abuja. It's good for us. We are not those who have inclined themselves to their regions. That is, their only measurement or their optics is about their region. We belong to the Zikis group. The Zikis group is an idea of a great Nigerian nation. And that is where we are. And that's why I'm happy that a candidate that came from the Igbo side is saying he's not an Igbo candidate. And he's been adopted likewise.
All right, we want to say many thanks to you, Mr. Osita Okechukwu.
On the CBN and DSL, please.
Okay.
Yes, just go on. Yeah,
Briefly.
let's have your views on that, please.
On the CBN and DSS, what I've learned over my decades in Nigeria is that for such matters, we allow it to unfold itself so that before we get into the nitty-gritties. If you live on conjunctures, it will dovetail into being superstitious. So I don't want to comment. It will unfold by itself.
All right. Many thanks to you, Mr. Osita Okechukwu, for joining us here on the morning show.